What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Gameball with your host, Matson Montilla. Today, we have a lot to dive into. The head coaching carousel at the NFL. The Los Angeles Chargers hiring Jim Harbaugh. The Carolina Panthers hiring Dave Canales. The Falcons landing Raheem Morris. And the Tennessee Titans hiring Brian Callahan. So to start things off, let's look at the first head coaching hire. Jim Harbaugh to the Los Angeles Chargers. Ahead of the 2023 season with the Michigan Wolverines, there were murmurs, quiet but yet murmurs, about Harbaugh potentially leaving Michigan after this season to go to the NFL. The want and the admiration to get a Super Bowl, to restore a team to glory like he has done at Michigan. And then as the season progressed, the murmurs became a little bit louder and louder, and the signs became bigger and bigger, pointing all to one direction, the NFL. And after winning that national championship with Michigan, it was all but set in stone that he was going to end up in the NFL. And it wasn't a matter of who's going to want him. It was more of who did he want. As soon as he became a head coach on the free agent market to join the NFL, everybody wanted an interview with Jim Harbaugh. Not Bill Belichick, Jim Harbaugh. The Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Los Angeles Chargers. You name a team that didn't have a head coach, guess who they called? Jim Harbaugh. Why? Because when he joins a team, he doesn't leave until the job is finished. And he also can turn things around just like that. He is that good of a coach. He knows what it takes to be successful at any level of football. FCS, he won 2 Pioneer Cups with San Diego. FBS, he restored Stanford. He made them look from a crapshoot to a very talented top 5 team in the country. Michigan, mediocrity to the cream of the crop in college football. The 49ers, disaster to the Super Bowl. No matter where he goes, he has success. And when he had the option of picking what place he wanted to go to, he looked at them all and said, I want to go to the Chargers, which ultimately made the most sense. Why? Well, first of all, familiarity. When Jim Harbaugh joins a team, he wants to have some sort of connection to them. When he was playing in the NFL, he was helping out as a recruiter with his dad at Western Kentucky. Boom. Connection. First head coaching gig was at the University of San Diego. And what did San Diego offer? Well, familiarity. Where did he play 2 seasons in the NFL? San Diego Chargers. University of San Diego equals San Diego. Stanford. His dad was a defensive coordinator there prior years before. Familiarity. His dad coached there. He coached there. Michigan, alum, beloved quarterback of the Wolverines. Familiarity was in the air at Michigan. And to round things out, now he goes to the Los Angeles Chargers. And what does Los Angeles offer in the Chargers? Familiarity. Ownership's the same. He played for this owner. Now he coaches for the owner. He has a sense of pride and understanding of what it means to be a Charger and what it takes to be successful under this franchise. Reason number 2, he has a quarterback in place. Not just any quarterback, Justin Herbert, a bona fide top 8 quarterback in the league. What do those other teams offer at quarterback? Projects, help, distress, question marks. Bryce Young, a number 1 pick that hasn't turned out too well. The Falcons, bad and bad. The Raiders, Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy Garoppolo. There were no quarterbacks that even reached 20% of what Herbert is. And the third thing the Chargers offered is command of the franchise. Who do they hire first between their GM vacancy and their head coach vacancy? Their head coach. They brought in Harbaugh. Who are they interviewing to be GMs of the Chargers? GMs that have a good relationship and familiarity with Jim Harbaugh. And they're giving him control because they understand in order to win, we must trust in Jim. And that's why Jim Harbaugh picked the Los Angeles Chargers. And the reason why this was a home run hire by the Los Angeles Chargers is because Jim Harbaugh has a special touch to make garbage turn to gold. The Chargers have been a disappointment for the past 4 seasons under Brandon Staley and Herbert, not meeting expectations, not being able to win in the playoffs, not knowing what it takes to be a successful team, putting up a lot of points, allowing a lot of points, allowing few points, scoring less points. They did everything the wrong way, despite having the talent to do it the right way. And so that's why bringing in Jim Harbaugh was the right decision. I alluded to it earlier. Everything he touches turns to gold. Well, let's look at his track record and his resume. When he was an assistant recruiter at Western Kentucky from 1994 to 2001, he recruited 17 players that were all rostered when they won the FCS championship. Gold. 2002 to 2003, he was an assistant coach for the Raiders. You know what he did on the Raiders as an assistant coach? He helped coach Rich Gannon, their quarterback at the time. And what did the Raiders do in their first season with Jim Harbaugh? Helping Rich Gannon perform his best? They went to the Super Bowl. He won the MVP. He was a Pro Bowler. Gold. He went to the University of San Diego from 2004 to 2006. And what did he do for San Diego? He brought them 2 Pioneer Cups, top of the league, 11-1 in 2 seasons, 7-5 in his first year there. Turned around the program. Went to Stanford, 2007 to 2010. The records, you ask? 4-8, 5-7, 8-5, 12-1. And you look at those records and you think, well, dang, he didn't really do too much. Look at the season prior, 1-11. They were terrible, lackluster, didn't have talent, hard team to coach, and somehow righted the ship and made them look like one of the best teams in the country, beating Southern Cal when they were undermanned, beating Pete Carroll, and showing that Stanford is actually somewhat legit. After that, he went to San Francisco in the 49ers. NFC Championship. Super Bowl. NFC Championship. First 3 years there. He brought them their first division title since 2002. San Francisco hadn't won the division for 10 years, and he brought them a division title in his first and led them all the way to the NFC conference game. Gold. Last but not least, the team that has brought me more stress than many other teams have ever had. The Michigan Wolverines. He coached there from 2015 to 2023. We all know the 3 college football playoff appearances, the national championship, beating Ohio State 3 times in a row for the first time since 1995. But let's also look at the direction of this team and how they were faring beforehand under the Brady Hoke era. 11-2, 8-5, 7-6, 5-7. Worse and worse and worse each year. Hard to watch football at a team that should always be, some people might say top 10, but in reality, they should always be a top 6 team in the entire country, year in and year out. And he restored them to glory, only having 1 season under 500 in his entire tenure at Michigan. And what season was that? The COVID year, when Michigan only played 6 games, when nobody knew what the heck was going on. He returned them to greatness. Jim Harbaugh was by far the best candidate on the market, and there was eight head coach vacancies. And I guarantee you he's already better than half the coaches in the league right now, if not more. He was the cream of the crop because he could bring you gold. In Los Angeles, they struck gold. All right, so now the question is, what does Jim Harbaugh need to do to touch the Chargers and turn them to gold? Well, the obvious answer, the one answer to it all is establish a running game, balance the offense. As we've seen since Stanford, Jim Harbaugh has restored so many teams and established them on a national scale into being a great team. And what does he do every season? Well, he runs the ball. Every team, every year, doesn't matter the talent, doesn't matter who's behind as a signal caller or what fancy wide receivers or tight ends you have. He establishes a run. That's the first order of business. It's always been, and it always will be. Stanford, he had Toby Gerhart. 49ers, Frank Gore. Michigan, you name a running back. Chris Evans, Zach Charbonnet, Blake Corum, Hassan Haskins, Donovan Edwards. He's established the run. He had a 1-2 punch at running back too. But he established the run. What have the Chargers forgotten about? The run. Why? Because the game's changing. The NFL's different, right? It's becoming more of a passing game. The best teams that do well, they can throw the ball. Let me have you hold that thought. Let's think about this. Let's let it marinate. Let's think about who's in the conference championships right now. The Chiefs, right? The Ravens, the Lions, the 49ers. And what do they all have in common? It's not quarterback. Brock Purdy's not Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson's not Jared Goff. It's not defense. It's a running back. It's a running game. The Ravens have one of the greatest rushing quarterback ever. Great passing quarterback, but phenomenal running quarterback. He's unreal. Lamar Jackson. Gus Edwards, he's been doing well. Right? Dalvin Cook, he looks like he's coming out of his shell right now. The Chiefs, what do the Chiefs have? Isaiah Pacheco, great running back. 49ers, Christian McCaffrey, the best running back in the league. The Lions, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, the best 1-2 punch at running back in the entire NFL. It's about running, right? Yeah, passing is cool and maybe it's becoming more relevant, but it's still a running game. You need running backs. You need players to run the ball. All right? You need the Seahawks to run the ball. And what have the Chargers been unable to do in the 4 seasons that Herbert's been there? Run the ball. Is it by choice or is it by force of hand? I'll leave that up to you. Is Austin Eckler a great running back? No. Should they have ran the ball more often? Yeah. I think it's a double issue in my eyes. It's a 1-2 punch. They didn't have a great running game, and they also weren't trying to run the ball that often either. But step one, and honestly the only step, is establish a running game, because it's going to help the 3 biggest issues. It's going to help in sacks, it's going to help in pass attempts, and it's going to help have a balanced offense. In 17 seasons that Jim Harbaugh has coached since 2007 when he joined Stanford, in 14 of those seasons, he's had a 1,000-yard rusher. In 14 of those seasons, he had players combined for running over 1,250 yards. In 12 of those seasons, he had players combined for running for over 1,500 yards. And keep in mind, college football, less games. When he coached the 49ers, less games. 16 games for the 49ers, 17 games now in the new NFL. And he still ran the ball more effectively in a longer period of time than Chargers could ever do in this 4-year period of time. They never had a 1,000-yard rusher in Herbert's 4 seasons there. They had 2 players combined for a total of 1,000 yards rushing or more 3 out of those 4 seasons. Only one time had they had a running back or 2 running backs combined for over 1,250 yards or more, and that was 1,275. They never had a running game. They never did. And that's going to hurt your team a lot because it makes your team very predictable. Well, if they're not rushing the ball, they choose not to, or they just have really bad running backs, what are we going to do? We're going to prepare for the pass. Every play, we're going to practice like it's a pass play. We're We're going to drop back our secondary. We're going to lock down Keenan Allen. We're going to lock down Joshua Palmer. And we're going to bring the heat onto Herbert. And it worked. The Chargers have been terrible in these 4 seasons that Herbert has been there. They've been abysmal, ineffective. Can't win in playoff games. Can't even make the playoffs. Had the 5th worst record in the NFL this season with 13 games that Herbert played. Pretty telling sign. And if you don't believe me, if you don't believe the eye test and the record and what it's stating, let me show you some numbers of how a poor balanced offense leads to losses and leads to predictability. Well, it's easy to prepare for the pass when, A, you have running backs who are terrible and can't get yardage. B, it leads to more pressure on the quarterback when he is passing the ball. In the 4 seasons that Herbert and the Chargers have had Brandon Staley at head coach, the Chargers ranked top 10 in most sacks allowed each season except for one, where they ranked 18th but still allowed 31 sacks. So in 2020, 34 sacks. 2021, 31. 2022, 42. 2023, 43. And again, that's a sign of just a poor balanced offense. It's not a sign of a bad offensive line because their offensive line is top 10, has been top 10 for at least the past 2 seasons. And they still allowed that many sacks because there was no balance. If you don't believe the sack total, if you don't believe the record, if you don't believe the running numbers, well, let me just read you one more thing that shows the lack of a balanced offense. If I can find my numbers. I know them, but I want to read you these numbers because they're pretty extraordinary. In 2020, the Chargers ranked 4th in pass attempts per game at 595, 2nd at 672 in 2021, 2nd in 2022 with 699, and in 2023, Justin Herbert was on pace to rank 4th in pass attempts at 597. The numbers tell you what's going on. They tell you how easy it is to just stop this team because there's no balance to it. And Harbaugh is going to be able to bring balance. He's brought balance to Stanford, San Francisco, Michigan. And if the rushing numbers don't tell you that, let me tell you one more fact. In Herbert's 4 seasons at the Chargers, his lowest number of pass attempts per game was 35.8. Then it was 40, 40, 41. In 17 seasons that Harbaugh's coached, since 2007 at Stanford, not a single player, not a single quarterback averaged more than 29 pass attempts per game. That was the most, 29. Herbert at the least was 35. They never even reached 30 under Harbaugh. They had 29. And you could say, well, who did they have at quarterback? J.J. McCarthy. Going to be a first, second round pick. Andrew Luck. I mean, Heisman runner-up in 2010. And he passed the ball less than 30 times per game. It's going to be a balanced offense, and it's going to work. Because Harbaugh doesn't care who he is as signal caller. All he cares about is winning. Because he knows what it takes to win. And it starts with establishing the run. Having a balanced offense. And the last thing I want to state about why I think this was a good move by the Chargers is because they will give not the Bill Belichick treatment of, hey, you're going to be GM and head coach, because as we've seen, it doesn't really work out too well when your head coach is your GM. But they understand Harbaugh knows what it takes to be good in football, so they'll help give him the reins. And what do I mean by that? There are a lot of moves coming for the Los Angeles Chargers. Entering free agency, they're negative $30 million underneath the salary cap. So they need to get above that threshold if they want to make any moves, have flexibility. In free agency, trades, they have to make moves. And therefore, there's going to be a lot of big-name players departing from the team to create cap space. The likes of Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Mike Williams, potentially Keenan Allen, Eric Kendricks. Big-name players, starting players, top-of-the-line players that will most likely have to be moved off on to create some space. And the Chargers understand this, and they know that Harbaugh knows how to build a team. So why bring a GM in that might butt heads with Harbaugh? You want to have good give and take, obviously, but you don't want to have two immovable forces. We know Harbaugh is willing to give and take, right? But you don't want to have it be a big war breaking out between the GM and the coach. Like, you don't want that to happen to any franchise. So the Chargers recognize this, and they are looking at GMs now, and they have been, before Harbaugh was hired, and especially now, that have a good relation with Harbaugh. Whether that's a working relationship, like they know each other from previously being in a team together, or maybe somehow Harbaugh got connected to somebody, and they just kind of spoke, and they have a good relationship before entering the Chargers. But you want to have compatibility with the GM and the head coach, especially with these big moves on the way. So although Harbaugh's not the GM and the head coach like a Bill Belichick, he still will have a say to the GM and have good give and take and good back and forth, because whoever this GM will be is going to have some sort of a good foundation relationship with Jim Harbaugh entering the position. Overall, home run hire by the Los Angeles Chargers. The next head coaching position that I want to speak about is the Atlanta Falcons. Earlier this week, they hired Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator from the Los Angeles Rams. Morris has been around the league for quite some years. Before becoming the defensive coordinator at the Rams, he held various positions with the Atlanta Falcons for about 4 to 5 years at that franchise. Then went on to have a lot of success with the Rams, built this defense that had players like Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, and then he made players like Kobe Turner go turn around and become a great rookie defensive player this season. He helped Ernest Jones be good. He's helped a lot of great defenders. Either great ones become extraordinary, good ones become great. You could say bad ones become good. He can take them up to another level. And I love this hire of Raheem Morris because it's threefold, right? The first thing I like about this, the pretty obvious one, is he's a defensive-minded coach. And what do the Falcons have that's been set in stone to be really proven? Defense. Last year, they won 7 games because of their defense. They hung around more games because of their defense. They have great players, A.J. Terrell, Jesse Bates, Grady Jarrett, to name a few. And he's going to help this defense stay intact, stay powerful, and help what they're already good at potentially be great, but also just be stabilized. You need something stable on your team, and they will be able to have that with Raheem Morris coaching this defense. The second thing I like about it is it's a bit of a culture shock, right? He's quite opposite of Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith came in as an offensive mind, Raheem Morris, defensive mind, right? He comes from the bright lights of LA, and he understands what it takes to have success, whether you're in the bright lights or not. He knows what it takes to be good and to compete at the highest level. Arthur Smith came from the Titans, who they had a good year or two with him, but nothing to write home about. Raheem Morris, he had great years with the Rams, right? He was phenomenal there. They were competing year in and year out, having a ton of success. And third, and certainly not least, mostly the most important thing, is it's going to be a big culture shock, right? There is rumors that Bill Belichick was interested in the Falcons position, and the Falcons were interested in Bill Belichick. Mutual relations. And everyone's thinking, bring in Bill Belichick. He is a proven head coach. He's won 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots. He won a Super Bowl with the Giants. He knows how to win. He knows how to compete. But over the past few seasons, the Patriots haven't been good. And there's various factors to it, right? But the biggest thing that I take notice from the outside looking in is that the Patriots' issue with Bill Belichick and the team was there was a disconnect, it felt like, between the young players and Belichick. The veterans, they've been around, they know how to play good, and everyone has respect for Bill Belichick. But if you're a 28 to 30-year-old, a 35-year-old player, you're going to have the utmost respect because you're not you're not childish, right? I mean, I'm 21, right? I respect Bill Belichick, but who knows how I would act because I'm 21 years old, right? 30-year-olds, they're there to be motivated, to be locked in. They're zoned in. And they're willing to do the Belichick Patriot way method. If just, you can't talk to the media. You got to lock in part because they're just there to win, but also in part because they've done it. I'm 21 years old. The rookies entering the league, they're 22, 21. Man, we've never been necessarily on the big stage in terms of, I'm sure these college kids, they were the big names at where they went to school. But then they get to the NFL and the lights are brighter and it's more fun. Like, you want to show personality during the interview. You want to be yourself. I would want to be myself. I'm 21. If someone interviews me and I'm on the Patriots or the Giants or whatever team I'm on, I'd want to be giving a thoughtful answer. I would want to show them, hey, I'm a nice kid. I like to have fun. You know, maybe crack a joke there in the interview. And it felt like there was a disconnect between Belichick and the young guys. And what do the Falcons have? A lot of young, talented players. Bijan Robinson, Drake London, their offensive linemen, Caleb McGarry, Chris Lindstrom, A.J. Terrell's young. A lot of young players. Their quarterback, whoever it might be coming in, most likely they'll draft one with the 8th pick. He'll be a young quarterback. And by having Raheem Morris, somebody that is very well respected by everybody, and primarily in this conversation we're having now, players really respect him and they love him. It's got to be because he forms some sort of connection with them. Just like Dan Campbell and the Lions formed a connection with all players. Raheem Morris commands the respect and the love from the stars and the studs. As soon as he got hired, Jalen Ramsey was like, he's the man. I love this guy. Great coach. The rookies on defense were performing at such a high level under him on the Rams. There's got to be a want to play for him to play that well, right? If you're a 4th-round pick, yeah, you're going to work hard, but if you have a coach that cares about you, you're going to work even harder, right? If you have a good connection with them, just like if I go to school and I have a professor that's really nice to me, really cool, I'm going to want to do well in that class because he's helping me, because that professor's being so kind to me and really helping me understand it. I want to do well in the exams and say, hey, thank you for helping teach this lesson the right way. I got an A, and I'm thankful that you helped me with it. So I like it because he has a connection that I feel like will wrap around whether you're 40 or 20, however old you are, he'll have a great connection with you as a player and coach. He's also well respected by everybody. The owners, the head coach, the GMs, the front office, the players, his coaching staff. Everyone seems to have a lot of respect for him. Arthur Blank was blown away by the interview that he had. He commanded respect and a good relationship with Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons. During the exit interviews for the Rams, Les Snead, the GM for the Rams, during the exit presser, first thing he ever said was, this guy needs a head coaching job because he's awesome. Knowing that if he says that, he'll most likely lose him, right, to be a head coach somewhere else. You're losing a prize defensive coordinator. But he wanted that because he had so much respect for Raheem Morris and so much love and probably a great relationship with him. And that shows layers. He can command a locker room, the coaching staff, can communicate well with the front office, the owners. He's a total package. I love it because it's a bit of a culture shock in terms of if Bill Belichick came in there. That would be a culture shock, but not the one you'd want. Raheem Morris is bringing one that is innovative and fun and likable. We saw what the Lions did with Dan Campbell. I'm excited to see what the Falcons can do with Raheem Morris. So now looking at the other NFC South team that hired a head coach, the Carolina Panthers hiring Dave Canales, the former offensive coordinator from Tampa Bay. And I don't think it was necessarily a home run hire because it's a bit of an unknown. He was an offensive coordinator for 1 year in the NFL, and now he's a head coach of a team. But I understand the hire. I don't want to read too much into labels because when he was coaching at Seattle, he helped turn around helped Russell Wilson have two of his best seasons ever. He helped turn around Geno Smith, and he helped turn around Baker Mayfield. And so it's okay, with Bryce Young, he needs help turning it around. He didn't have a great first year. So I appreciate it because they're bringing in somebody who, at least on paper and track record-wise, looks like he can be somewhat of a quarterback guru. He also was a wide receiver coach for the Seattle Seahawks, coaching players like Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett, Paul Richardson, Jermaine Kearse. Turned out pretty well there. Tampa Bay, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Trey Palmer. Pretty solid players. So you bring him in because he has an offensive mind in the two specialty groups that the Panthers need help with the most. He's also looking to bring in Tom Midsick, the wide receiver coach from Tampa, which will just help them out more, allow him to have more attention with Bryce Young, Tom Midsick with the wide receivers. But what I will say is this hiring and this team, it's going to come down to who can they bring in and are they willing to spend some money? Because it looks like they weren't willing to spend the money on Brian Burns. He's a free agent. He's probably going to walk. And I understand you don't want to commit a lot of money to him, especially where you are. Fair enough. But they got to commit some money because they need an overhaul of this offense if there's going to be any signs of life with this Panthers team. Wide receivers, on paper, I'll be honest, I don't like any of them. Adam Thielen is over 30. I don't think there's much left with him. DJ Chark, I like him, but he's not a wide receiver 1 or a wide receiver 2. Jonathan Mingo, he's a rookie. Maybe he can turn it around, but I don't see him being a wide receiver 1, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope these guys turn it around. But on paper, they don't look like all-star caliber players. And so what that means is they need to spend some money, help Bryce Young out, and bring him some wide receivers, right? But more importantly, attack the offensive line. Because you look at the numbers and you see how well these quarterbacks did, but what did they all have in common? Offensive lines. You look at Geno Smith and his comeback player of the year performance in 2022 when he put up great numbers. Offensive line was firing. Charles Cross was doing really well. Lucas from Washington was doing really well. Offensive line was strong. Tampa Bay. What did Baker Mayfield have? A strong offensive line. Tristan Wirfs. Ryan Jensen. Luke Godick. A great offensive line. So attack the offensive line because they have Taylor Mon, who's fine. They have Iggy, who's pretty good. Two good linemen. 3 questionable linemen. So bring some linemen in to help protect Bryce Young because that's the start of it all. So my grade on this is inconclusive because I don't know much about Dave Canales. I'll be honest, he's a bit of a mystery, having only 1 year at OC. His track record looks solid, but it's still a bit of a question mark in my opinion. If Tom Midsick comes over, I think that makes the hire a little bit better because then you have a quarterback guru and his wide receiver guru, right? An offense coordinator, and you can help those two positions grow together. But we'll see what the result is based off of how aggressive and willing are the Panthers to spend some money in free agency and help Dave Canales get some players to be better as a team. I like Bryce Young a lot. He just needs help, like in terms of players around him, because I think he has potential. Dave Canales could have potential with Bryce Young. Time will tell. But if you want to do well, pick Carolina, you got to spend some money. The last head coach hiring was Brian Callahan, the former offensive coordinator from the Bengals, being named the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. And like the Panthers move, it seems like the Titans hire Brian Callahan because of what he can do with quarterbacks. So when you look at the team and what they have rostered, they have Will Levis, who came on strong to start in the middle of the season and then kind of leveled out and was solid. He was a solid quarterback. But he looks like he has potential to be, dare I say it, a potential franchise quarterback, at least in Tennessee's eyes. So they go and they look at, okay, who can develop a quarterback that's on the market? Who can do it? And they ultimately decided that coach was going to be Brian Callahan. And it makes sense because let's look at his track record. And I know I keep saying it, but there's going to be a correlation to it. So, to start things off, I want to say, it's hard to throw for over 4,000 yards passing yards in a season. Historically, about 8 to 10 players per year do it, right? Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. They do well. But it has something to do in part with who is helping coach them, who's helping develop them. And in Brian Callahan's career, from being a quarterback coach and an offense coordinator, he has a direct impact on how the quarterback performs, help coaches him up, help them play well. And in his entire career, from as a quarterback to offense coordinator coach, so from 2016 to 2023, every quarterback he's coached threw for 4,000 yards or more each season or were on pace to do it until an injury happened. So in 2016, Stafford threw for 4,300 yards. 2017, 4,500 yards, both in Detroit when Brian Callahan was the quarterback coach there. Derek Carr. Brian Callahan was the quarterback coach for the Raiders for 1 year. Derek Carr threw for 4,000 yards for the first time in his entire career under Brian Callahan. 2019, Callahan was named the offensive coordinator of the Bengals. Andy Dalton threw for 3,500 yards in 13 games and was on pace, if he played the full season and was healthy, he was on pace for 4,300 yards, so over that 4,000 mark. In 2020, Joe Burrow threw for 2,700 yards in 10 games and was on pace for 4,300 yards. 21 and 22, Burrow threw for over 4,500 yards. And then in this last season, Burrow, before his injury, was on pace to finish with 4,000 yards in the season. And just to top it off, when Burrow got hurt, he missed 7 games of the year. Who came in? Jake Browning. What did Jake Browning do? He threw for 1,900 yards. And if he started that whole season, he was on pace to throw for over 4,000 yards passing. So you name a quarterback. Yeah, Burrow was talented, but he was a rookie when Callahan started coaching him. Dalton was on the back end of his career. Derek Carr was fine. Stafford was the only, you could say, solidified player. And he didn't just throw for 4,000 yards. He threw for 4,500 yards with Brian Callahan. So he seems to be a bit of a quarterback guru. And what do the Titans want to work on the most? Will Levis. And what position does he play? Quarterback. So that's why they went out there and got Brian Callahan. So I like the move, and I respect it. Again, just like I said about Carolina, I respect it. They're trying to help their young quarterbacks have success by bringing in quarterback gurus in their eyes and their vision. So I don't mind the move. I like it. I understand it. Again, I'm not going to write home about it and say they struck gold with this hire, but I'm not going to say this was a bad hire. Again, it comes down to how does Will Levis progress? But I like the idea and I like the thought process. And one other note I want to make is everyone's probably thinking, well, why did they move off of Mike Vrabel? He was great for so long. They were the number 1 seed 1 year. They went 12-5 that season. He's been a great motivator. He's helped this team so much. They had 1 bad season. Why'd they move off of him? And I think it's twofold. The first thing is he's defensive minded, right? Maybe he won't be able to have a direct impact on Will Levis. But the other thing, and most importantly, the biggest thing about why they moved off of Mike Vrabel was it felt like the team that he coached is gone. And in reality, and I'll tell you right now, it is gone. It's gone completely. It's over. That 2021 team that won the division, that was the number 1 seed, it's over. The whole team's departed. And as the team moves on, it's fitting that the coach moves on along with the team, right? Because there's a turnover in Tennessee. And that's truthfully what it is. And that's why I think Vrabel left. And that's why Tennessee moved off of him, because they both recognized this is not the same team anymore. We got to switch it up. Here are some key players from the 2021 season where they finished 12-5 that are no longer going to be there next season. Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Rashaan Evans, Bud Dupree, Julio Jones, Kevin Byard, David Long Jr., and Danico Autry. All high-end back players. That's a lot of players. That's 9 players. Core players. Not just roster, but these are all starters, and they're all gone. They've departed. And there's more. There's more starters that are departed from this team. But these are your quarterback, your running back, and your wide receiver 1 are all gone. It's a big loss. It's a big turnover. It's not the same team anymore. So that's why they moved off of him. And that's why they brought Callahan in. Quarterback guru, but also we need a bit of a culture change. Just like I said with Raheem Morris in Atlanta, you need a culture switch up sometimes. And that's exactly what's going on in Tennessee. So I like the move by the Titans. I respect it. I understand it. So that wraps up the head coaching carousel. A lot of moving pieces across the board with it.